part of what being authentically American means is having everything made in America.
Yeah.
So all of our chocolates are processed in America. All of our flavors are processed in California. All of our packaging comes from the United States. Our molds come from Buffalo, New York. So we have tried to be the authentically American chocolate company. Since
Hi, I'm Danny Brassell, and welcome to People Make a Difference. This is the show where we celebrate the positive contributions of individuals in our community, and it is my pleasure and joy to have with me today Ed Engoron, who is the co-founder of Choclatique. Thank you for joining me, Ed.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And I want to show a B-roll of what Choclatique is all about. It's all about the magic of chocolate, if we can get that video on there.
And chocolate is very magic, isn't it?
It is. You are basically a real-life Willy Wonka. A lot of people don't know that.
I have been called that before.
I love it. I've also seen that you've been called the Dr. Strangelove of chocolate. You and your co-partner, Joan Buiger, are the Rembrandts of chocolate. And Choclatique has been around since 2003, and there right now our viewers are seeing probably your most popular item, which is Build-A-Box, which you can get on the Choclatique website, and anybody can select their own 8 chocolates to put in a box of, everybody loves a box of chocolates.
Well, it's not only 8s, it's 8s, 15s, and 30s.
8s, 15s, and 30s.
Right.
I didn't even see that. That's fantastic.
And it's our most popular thing on the website.
I absolutely. Okay, and let's get the website on there so everybody can see that immediately. It's choclatique.com. Ed, I'm very curious because you have a passion for chocolate. When did you first discover your passion for chocolate?
I was at the Cordon Bleu in Paris, and being in the 1970s, the Americans weren't very popular at that point in time, and I was asked to go as an apprentice. I was asked to be a part of this program of indentured servitude. So you go to school from 6 o'clock in the morning until about 2:30 in the afternoon, and from 3 you go to a restaurant and you work until midnight. And that goes on 7 days a week. None of the restaurants wanted an American. But I found the finest chocolate maker in Paris, and it was Moreau Chocolate, and they hired me on as an apprentice to wash dishes. And I got absolutely hooked on chocolate because I love the smell of chocolate in the morning. There's nothing quite like that.
That's wonderful. Now, you wrote a book on Choclatique, which maybe we can show our viewers Choclatique. One of the things I love in your book is right from the very beginning, you talk about how chocolate is unlike any other food. I think I'd rather have you talk about that than me. How is chocolate so unique?
Well, number one, all you have to do is take a look at that cover with the dripping chocolate. Mm-hmm. It has a wonderful aroma. It really is a magnificent element. But it has 30 constituent compounds that do wonderful things to you. They elevate your mood. They give you a little bit of a lift from a caffeine standpoint. Not much, but enough. And more than anything else, it's healthy. Dark chocolate lowers cholesterol, prevents cavities, takes care of your blood pressure. There's just a variety of wonderful things. So Montezuma had it right when he was drinking his 50 goblets a day and trying to service 250 of his wives. So it's also an aphrodisiac. Okay, so back in the days, 2,000 years ago, I guess we could say it was the original Viagra.
That's wonderful.
And we try to incorporate that into all of our dark chocolate.
Well, and you have how many? I know you have over 250 types of chocolate that you sell. How many types of dark chocolate do you have?
We are up to, I think, about 6 now.
6.
Yeah, and they go from 50%, which is the lowest amount of liquor, actually chocolate mass that's in there, up to 100%.
Wow.
At 100% is for baking and doing some of the fine desserts that are in the cookbook. And then 64 is our basic workhorse, which is our private reserve. But my favorite, I've got actually two favorites. Okay. My number one favorite is elephant chocolate. And you say, why is it elephant chocolate? Because it's seriously strong chocolate. It's 76%, and each one of the little truffles are elephant-shaped. And that, to me, is the finest of products that we produce in a dark chocolate. Q91, is a functional chocolate. And that does all the things that we were just talking about. 2 little wafers of Q91 a day is really like a 1-a-day vitamin.
Wow.
And it does all these wonderful things. It has less than 6% sugar, so it really has a tremendous amount of health benefits to you.
When you were just talking about like the elephant chocolates being shaped like elephants, I mean, I love your attention to art detail. I mean, and that's part of your background too. I mean, when you graduated from USC, you were an art director, a designer. I've seen that you've done over 600 television commercials and 200 TV shows and 15 feature films. And then you went from that background into the restaurant industry and then pursued your interest in chocolate. Tell us a little bit about all of these different passions and how you've incorporated them into Choclatique.
Well, I never wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be an art director. I wanted to be in the film industry until I got in the film industry and found out everything about the film industry. And it wasn't, the happiest place in the world to be. And I did the 1964 election coverage, so now I'm telling you how old I am. Wonderful makeup that you have here. I'm really amazed. And my first assignment was over in Vietnam, and right after the Bay of Tonkin, I was sent over to Vietnam with a camera crew, and I produced ABC News over there for 2.5 years, and I got tired of being shot at. I got to go to Cyprus, right in the middle of the Greek-Turkish uprising, and then I was...
they put you in all the prime locations.
And then I was in the Sinai, during the 67, whatever was going on in those days. And I came back, and my cameraman and I decided, hey, let's get out of this, and what do you want to do? And he says, well, I think we can make money opening a restaurant or a trailer park. And I said, trailer park, I don't think I can design one of those. I think I can design a restaurant. And we did. And we had a very successful restaurant.
And that was in 1969 in Marina Del Rey, right?
That's correct, the Warehouse Restaurant.
The Warehouse
Still
restaurant.
there.
Yeah. That's great. Now, you just started alluding to your travels. I mean, when I first met you, you talked about how you've traveled to over 130 countries in the world, and you've used all of these countries to influence. When you created Choclatique, you wanted to create an authentic American type of chocolate. Can you tell us a little bit about what goes into that?
Well, you take a look at what's going on around the world, and you try and showcase where the best chocolate is, and you take a look at what's going on in Belgium, and everybody's always big on Belgian chocolate, but to be honest with you, they haven't changed anything in 85 years.
Wow.
And if you go to Bruges in Belgium, which is a chocolate capital, it's chocolate for Europeans. It's not chocolate for Americans. And the taste profiles are very, very different. And when you go to Germany, their darks are very dark and brittle and bitter. And if you go to Switzerland and you have milk chocolate, they have those caramel notes. They don't have the fresh milk notes. And what we decided to do was, number one, we wanted to have authentic American flavors in our chocolate, and we worked with Gary Guittard at Guittard Chocolate for about 2 years, developing our blends of chocolate. And then we had to put something in them. And our first real assortment was what we call decadent desserts. And it had things like cherry pie and apple pie and creme brulee and brownie and chocolate chip cookie, all of the American desserts. And so we started playing around with flavor, because it all starts with flavor, but then we had to design them as well. And so we used a lot of custom molds. And part of what being authentically American means is having everything made in America.
Yeah.
So all of our chocolates are processed in America. All of our flavors are processed in California. All of our packaging comes from the United States. Our molds come from Buffalo, New York. So we have tried to be the authentically American chocolate company, since Hershey isn't anymore. They have plants in Mexico and around the world, and we're American.
Something you just said, which I really found interesting, is that Belgium hasn't evolved over the last 85 years with their chocolate. How do you consider your Choclatique, how it's going to be evolving, the chocolate?
Well, number one, we do something different every other day. I get bored, okay, and I think that's... my people don't get bored.
Yeah.
I have to say, they get pretty antsy. You know, what's he going to do right now? For instance, we wanted to do something called designer donuts. And, well, let me just show you what designer donuts look like. Move the book over there. These are designer donuts, and they're only about 50 or 60 calories a piece, and yet they have all the flavors that you would find when you went into a donut shop. And they're little miniature donuts, and what a pain they are to make. But I just love the look, and I think the taste is absolutely magnificent.
I think it's a beautiful look.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So, and this is something that if somebody wanted to go to choclatique.com, they could custom make a box, or are they already...
Well, that comes as an assortment, but you can put that in Build-A-Box as well, so it's always available. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give consumers an opportunity to participate and customize their orders. And those are really the driving categories for really fine confection. I mean, anybody can go into a drugstore and pick up a really great Snickers bar. And let me just talk about one thing here for a minute. There's nothing wrong with Snickers bars, and there's nothing wrong with Hershey's and Hershey products, and there's nothing wrong with Nestle products. Chocolate, there's really no bad chocolate. It's just some chocolate. Well, it's kind of like sex, okay? Some chocolate's better than others. Okay, I mean that's really where I'm coming from. And in the United States today, you're talking about evolving. We have 12 or 15 of the finest chocolatiers in the world. They compare to anything that's going on in Germany, France, and France is really still the really beautiful chocolate capital of the world, where you see some of the most stunning pieces of chocolate, and they taste great too. And so we're now comparable in this country with Ricciuti up in San Francisco, and Norman Love in Florida, and the ladies who own Visage in Chicago. And Franz up in Seattle. We're equal to anything that you can find over in Europe today.
Well, and it sounds like, I mean, you're a real student of chocolate, and that I was so excited when I found out that you had written the book. Tell us about how long it took you to write the book and what went into writing the book.
Well, it took a lifetime to write the book, because it's not a cookbook as you normally know it. It is an adventure book, and we were contracted by Running Press, wonderful publishing house. I've got it. Jeff Stone is my editor, best editor in the world to work with. Just never interfered with anything. He just added everything that he did was a big plus. And of course, I used a wonderful lady who cleaned up a lot of my stuff. Two wonderful ladies, three wonderful people. I had Joan Buiger, my partner. I had Mary Goodbody, who was my editor. And then I had Dave Rubenstein, who's my assistant, who went through every period, comma, colon, and everything in the world. So it took actually 3 years to write the book and proof the recipes. And for us, we had to go into the test kitchen, and we made everything at least 5 times to make sure, and with different people, to make sure that the products would perform well at home. And we delivered the manuscript to Jeff and his people, and then they went through it. They had a story editor and they had a recipe editor, and it was a 3.5 year process to do the book. The wonderful thing was that we gave them twice as much as what they need. So book number 2 is already done.
Great.
The adventure stories are done. The recipes have already been proofed, and I'm ready to go whenever they're ready to go.
Well, and it was such an easy book to read. I mean, I was actually really engaged, because I'm like, oh, it's a history book, it's a cookbook, but it's really a travel book, and it was like you're basically, I would call you have lots of nicknames for yourself, but I would call you the Indiana Jones of chocolate.
Well, I've been on a lot of these adventure tours down the Amazon and the Serengeti in Africa, and Xi'an in China, and so although you would say, what does that have to do with chocolate? China, chocolate in China is becoming a very, very important luxury right now. And they are every bit as discerning, and the Japanese are as well. So we're seeing that Asia's a real important market. And of course, I'm over in Europe at least once a month, working on projects over there unrelated to chocolate, and they love our chocolate over there. We're not currently selling over there, but we are now selling in Bahrain. So
wow.
You know,
well, and you talked about discerning, and so give our viewers, I know there's going to be a lot of chocoholics watching this. Now, to me, your chocolate is quality. It's not meant for quantity. How much is too much of a good thing? How much chocolate should a person consume? Only about 3 or 4 boxes.
Well, well, from my standpoint,
yes.
It really depends on the satiation level of the individual person, and satiation in chocolate is really geared toward the amount of sugar that's in there. And we have about 20% less sugar than anybody else. So let me explain why. We roast and treat our beans very, very differently than the big companies do. They'll take beans and they'll roast them for 15 or 20 minutes, and under very, very high heat. And we call that the Starbucks burn. Okay, they get the outside very, very dark. It's got a French roast, and the inside remains green. And when you start to conch the chocolate, you only have one thing to do because it becomes bitter, and that's add a lot of sugar. We roast our beans for 2.5 hours, and that makes a tremendous difference because even our 100% unsweetened baking chocolate is palatable. It's not like eating little squares that you buy in the supermarket. It's very, very palatable. I mean, it will shoot the top of your head off, and you only want to have one piece of it. But because we're so low on the sugar level, you can eat 2 and 3 pieces of it, and that also reduces the amount of calories that you have in there. So one of our truffles, if you have one of our donuts, it's like 60 or 70 calories instead of 1,000 calories. You know, if you went to one of the donut houses.
And completely satisfying.
Yeah, it is very satisfying. 2 or 3 even more satisfying.
Now, in your book, I thought you were ingenious because you're the first person I've seen to do this. I know everybody's going to be doing it pretty soon, but on the back cover you had a QR code. A QR code, folks, is it's one of those boxes with lots of different dark boxes inside of it. You'll see it in lots of publications. And not only did you do a QR code on the back to introduce people to you as an author and as an entrepreneur, but on all of your pages throughout the cookbook, you have these great little tips on how to prepare the recipes. What inspired you to do that?
We were having a meeting with my producer for A Million Cooks. I'm the chocolate doctor on A Million Cooks. And he was in the office and he said, I've got to show you the newest thing that we're going to be doing. And he took out this QR code, and we were looking at something he had just done with Ellen DeGeneres. And I said, you know, I've seen those things. I really don't know how to use them. And he gave me about a 20-minute lecture. And he left the office. I got on the phone with my great editor, Jeff Stone, and I said, I want to put QR codes on, and everybody said, what are QR codes?
Yeah, exactly.
I talked to my agent. She said, oh, just give them to him. It doesn't make any difference, you know. And I said, well, I want to control the content. And she says, oh, who cares? And I said, you know, would you have given away royalties back in the 1950s for television shows? And Jeff and the management gambled on it. And they said, okay, let's put them in. What have we got to lose? And so we did on all the chef secrets, or a number of the chef secrets, there's a QR code, and then those go to a video of me actually demonstrating the chef's secret with my own 2 hands.
Well, which is great, because I think that's what a lot of people don't know, how to prepare things with chocolate. I mean, it's not your typical ingredient that people love chocolate, but I don't see a lot of people actually cooking with chocolate. I was just fascinated how many things you can do with chocolate, and you make the point in the book that it's really one of the only foods that can be frozen, it can be served as a liquid, it can be served in
gel form, and pudding form, and cake form. You can bake it, cook it, freeze it, do anything you want with it, and it's still chocolate. And people love chocolate. Now, 65% of American women crave chocolate once a month. So that's kind of, you know, it's nice to be in an addictive business, okay?
Yes.
Chocolate and coffee are what we call addictive luxuries. And only 35% of men crave chocolate once a month. But, you know, when you get good chocolate in your mouth and it starts to melt in your mouth and it hits all the senses that you have. And so you get aroma, you get texture, you get flavor. If you snap it, you get a crack. If it's that you can feel in really good dark chocolate that you can hear and feel. So and plus it looks great when you do wonderful things with it. So there's a variety of things that really turn people on to chocolate. And I think it starts. I go in every morning and I get to turn on the chocolate melters. And I got to tell you, I love the smell of chocolate in the morning.
Too.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah.
You do Robert Duvall from Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
I love the smell of chocolate in the morning. And I love how you're describing all the senses. I mean, earlier you told us it's an aphrodisiac. So if 65% of women crave chocolate once a month, it sounds to me like a lot of men need to get some chocolate to their wives, because I know that there's larger than a 35% percentage of men that crave to have intimacy with their wife at least once a month.
Okay, listen up, everybody. Gentlemen, chocolate is not only for women, but it's also for
Absolutely.
men. Okay, I just want to make that point very, very clear.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. Now, I wanted to hear your Paris airport story you were telling me.
I'm flying back from Portugal. I've had 10 days of really hard work in Portugal, and I can fall asleep in a plane before the plane takes off, and I wind up I'm in the business class section. I wind up missing my meal, my hour and a half trip to Paris, and I finally wake up, and the young lady comes over. She said, "Would you like to eat something?" And I said, "No, I'm really not interested in eating right now." And she said, "Well, we have chocolate." And she takes out this hermetically sealed piece of chocolate, and she starts waving it under my nose. She says, "I've got chocolate. I've got chocolate." And I looked at her and I said, "Darling, I own a chocolate company and that's not chocolate." Oh. And I said, "But if you want to try chocolate," I had a 30-piece box of chocolate. I took it out and I said, "This is chocolate." And it was our champagne truffles, our Dom Perignon champagne truffles. And they're all gold kissed. There's a little bit of gold on every single one of them, 24 karat gold. And she calls all the other stewardesses over, and flight attendants over.
I've learned that too.
And they're all sitting there going through it. Well, before I know it, the pilot's out there, and he's eating the chocolate, and he goes back in, and the co-pilot's eating the chocolate. Now, you realize it could have been a terrorist, and it poisoned everybody on the flight. But we land, and I had a real tight connection, and you have to go from Terminal 2A all the way over to, I think it's Terminal 5D or something like that. And it's a 2-hour hike. I landed, and they had a car waiting for me. Okay, I ducked down the stairway, didn't go through the air bridge, ducked down the stairway. They have a car. They take me over, and they put me on the plane. I never even went through security.
That's awesome.
Second security. Yeah, so that's what chocolate can do for you.
Wow.
And I now carry chocolate wherever I go. You never know when you're going to meet a beautiful young lady on a plane. So,
Absolutely.
And tempt her with some chocolate.
Well, and it brings people together. I mean, Joy, our producer, the moment she saw that you had chocolate, I've never seen Joy give so much attention to a guest in my entire life.
She was wonderful. Back rubs and foot massages, and all for one piece of chocolate.
Not bad.
Joy's really good. Hang on to Joy.
Now, how do you? I mean, because you've created over 350 restaurants.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate chocolate into all your restaurants? I know you've been doing a lot of work in Portugal lately. How do you use chocolate in your restaurants?
Well, we do chocolate mousse in Portugal, which is a customary what we call comida casada dessert. That's a family-made dessert. The restaurants are all gone; they're all sold. But we always had chocolate. We had things like chocolate, hot fudge nut chocolate trifles, which were just wonderful desserts. We had something called chocolate sludge, which was a chocolate brownie microwave with hot fudge on top of it, whipped cream nuts, and a variety.
Delicious.
It looks like the sludge you get at the bottom of an oil well, but it doesn't taste anything like that. And so chocolate chip cookies and Cookie Monster desserts. And so we always had a tremendous amount of chocolate in there. And this was something I always wanted to do. And I saw a piece of equipment at a restaurant show in Las Vegas that got me started on this. And actually, the chocolatier that was demonstrating was from Bruges, and he's the only enlightened guy in the whole darn country that's doing anything that's really, it's called Chocolate Line. And all the other guys shun him because he does weird stuff. And we just started talking, and he says, "Well, you've got all this training." He said, "Why don't you do something, in America?" He said, "Nobody's doing what you want to do." And I did. and that's how we got started.
Are you the inspiration for every type of chocolate, or where else do you get inspiration? Do other people like give you suggestions? Because I know you have flavors like margarita and root beer float and peanut butter and jelly. I mean, do you come up with all these ideas, or are you watching TV shows, or little kids come up and say, why don't you do a Captain Crunch type of chocolate? I mean, where do you get the inspiration? Is it always coming from you?
On margarita, we are consultants, or have been consultants for Jimmy Buffett at Margaritaville restaurants.
Perfect.
So obviously I had to do something for Jimmy. And then with the rest of them, my partner and I, Joan and I, just sit down and we start on long plane flights, talk incessantly, because we never have a chance to talk in the office. Mm-hmm. She's busy doing all the marketing and important issues that keep the company rolling, and I do all the ethereal stuff. And so when we're together, we strategize and say we don't want to have boxed chocolate only be holiday chocolate. Mm-hmm. We want to create our own holidays. So when the astronauts were celebrating the 40th anniversary of their walk on the moon, we came out with Moon Rocks.
Oh, great.
We have Napa Valley wine chocolates for the Crush this year. We have donuts because I love donuts.
Yes.
Okay, that's
well, and we're running low on time, but I did want to talk a little bit about Joan, because she's been such a great partner to you, I think, for 27 years.
That's correct.
And you're the creative side, and she says she's more of the business, the realistic side, making sure the practical side, I guess. So talk about your relationship with Joan, your co-founder of Choclatique.
Well, we have two offices that oppose each other, mm-hmm. and we look at each other all day long. And there's glass doors that are never closed between our offices. And we've never fought, and we've disagreed, but we don't fight. And we just have a wonderful business relationship. I respect everything that she does. She was mm-hmm. the inspiration that when I said I've got this crazy idea, she said go for it. And she has facilitated and enabled me, like a crack addict, to do the things that I want to do to fulfill my artistic dreams. And there's nobody quite like her.
And I mean, I just love listening to how you collaborate with lots of different people. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you
for
having me.
I really appreciate it. And I want to make sure all of our viewers know that the website is choclatique.com. And the book is also named Choclatique. You can get the book. It's from Running Press, their cookbooks, and it actually already sold out the first edition, 50,000 copies, because it is very popular, and chocolate is even more popular. So I'm really grateful to have had Ed on the show. There are people like Ed in this community all around us every single day.
Ciao.